So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar with Maarga Systems. We are covering the topic of successful process automation for sales teams. We've had registrations from over 22 countries, with 40%, of course, being from the US. So I'd like to start with a warm welcome to everyone, and just goes to show that sales is indeed a universal problem. And we at Maarga have been fortunate to work in a few sales-related projects, and we're bringing in our learning in a nutshell today. Let me quickly show you what the agenda is going to be over the next 45 minutes. We'll first reflect on key problems to solve in the enterprise sales context. A brief dive into the technology side of things and how technology helps. We'll also look at a couple of case studies to show you real-world examples and what success looks like. And fourth would be giving you a recipe for you to follow to execute automation in your enterprise. And lastly, there'll be opportunity to interact and have feedback and questions answered. All right, so before we dive straight into the enterprise sales context, I'll give you a quick overview of who we are. Maarga is a boutique technology partner to mid-sized and large global firms. We've been in business for a decade and a half, and Maarga improves business processes through digital and automation. And enterprise clients who work with Maarga typically experience greater collaboration and better business agility. The top services that Maarga offers, and we are focusing on the first one, the Automate division, where Maarga has deep expertise in SharePoint, Lotus Notes, and other bespoke technologies that we leverage to deliver best-in-class workflows for our clients. There are other capabilities such as migrate, collaborate, transform, and manage, but for the sake of brevity, we'll move on. The people who are here today to share our understanding and interact with you, the first one is me, Nattu. I handle marketing at Maarga. We've got Ananta, who heads up all projects that are related to automation, and Chirag, who heads technology for Maarga. All right. Now, let's look at the sales context in a large enterprise. For that, we need to first define what a large enterprise is. At Maarga, we'd recognize that as a company that's over $1 billion in sales, potentially 10,000 plus employees, going pretty much all the way up to 100,000 employees. You'd certainly concur that in such a context, there will be large sales teams, typically distributed within the country and across borders as well. And definitely there are systems and processes that need to be put in place. The backbone of a large enterprise, we'd see from a technology footprint, would be a robust CRM system, whether it is an Oracle-based solution or Salesforce.com or anything in between. A CRM is guaranteed in a large enterprise, but it's not that all sales-related problems are solved through CRM systems. There are a lot of peripheral other needs which are implemented potentially through spreadsheets and emails, which can be a challenge for the enterprise itself. So we've delivered over 3 to 4 projects in the last quarter in the sales domain, and at every possible opportunity, we've gone and interacted with sales leaders and asked them what matters to them. Teams check with the sales leaders as to what they see as the single biggest differentiator that separates winning sales teams from the laggards. And the answers come in different forms and different words, but it all concludes into this term, agility. And when we probe further, we learned that there are 2 big pillars of agility. The first is the ability to listen, and the second is the ability to respond. Now, these appear fairly simple, but if you could imagine a large enterprise where your regional sales manager sends the field sales officer over to visit a client and help get the second contract after delivering the first product, and the sales officer discovers that the product has problems, it's not working as expected. uh, in the old world, it would be writing a memo and then finding a way back to regional officer, to the headquarters, over to the factory. Now, if you could use a digital solution, as simple as use your mobile phone, take a small 30-second video of what's going on there, record the behavior of the tools of the product, upload it to a SharePoint portal, send a message to the factory headquarters saying, please look at this and get me, and fly in a service engineer to resolve this. Now that is response at real time, and something like that definitely sets up sales teams for greater success. And this is where large sales organizations, due to the presence of many stakeholders and many layers, there is always a constraint around the ability to listen and respond. All right, and this is exactly where solutions that Maarga and many other boutique consultancies would do is to leverage technology and digital. And we've seen that a digital solution can be truly a game changer in this context. All right. With that, I'm going to request Scott, could you bring up the first poll, please?
Okay, so the first poll is up on your screens. So for right now, we just want to understand your role in the organization at this point, so that the content can be of this webinar can maybe be skewed more towards the participants. So if we'll get some quick feedback from you. And almost 70% of us have voted. That's good. We'll give everyone else just about 4 more seconds to click on a mouse there. So what is your role in the organization? Are you the process owner? You're in IT management, you're a software developer, or you're from the business team that uses workflows, or another role? I'm going to share the results now. And it looks like 69% of the attendees today are the process owners or business analysts, 8% are in IT management, 8% software development, and 15% you're with the team that uses workflows. All right, okay. Brilliant. Thank you for your feedback.
Thanks for that, Scott. That's very useful to know. This webinar content is definitely skewed towards more a business side of things with the technology dimension thrown in. So I'm sure the business teams and the business analysts who, if you're involved in a sales enablement role or you're supporting sales, there's a lot you can take away. But there's also a good amount of technology sprinkled in. So for the IT management and the software developers joining in today. All right, so let me move on to the top 5 challenges that sales leaders face in the enterprise. The first one, the most popular that we've been hearing from sales leaders, is the ability to turn around proposals on time. Typically, you'd see that if you're fitting into an engineering or a manufacturing context, a proposal needs to be submitted against a request for proposal or a tender, and there would be deadlines to meet. But a proposal cannot be individually prepared. There'll be several stakeholders involved. And the key question is, how do you weave this document through several stakeholders, get their blessing, and get it back to the client side on time? And how do you reduce the proposal turnaround time? That's the first one. The second, especially in large sales teams, you would agree that there will be incentive-led targets that are set for the sales colleagues. And for example, if you're in the financial space and you've got sales officers who are in the mortgage loans segment, and imagine a situation where they've got $100,000 target for this week, and they're 2 days into the week, they've already covered 70,000. What if I get a notification saying, hey, you've got 3 more days left, this working days left, and you've got just 30,000 to cover. Can you do it and win that incentive for you for this week? So something of that nature, proactive alerts, clear visibility on where the sales officers stand against their targets would be a huge plus point in motivating sales teams to deliver more. The third is very interesting, and there are 2 slides on this topic. The first is when you go in to submit proposals, or when you're about to sign a deal, there will be last minute technical queries, and it's not something that every sales colleague can have on their fingertips to respond. They need to lean back on the enterprise to provide the correct answers quickly enough. So how quickly do you turn around a cogent response is a big question. The other side of this is field visits. We all know that a visit to the client's office has a huge impact on building business relationships. But at the end of that meeting, there's always follow-up to be done. So are your field visits tracked effectively to ensure prompt follow-ups? Do you have a system in place that where the field visit outcomes can be tracked, next steps can be recorded, and closed in good time? So that's around field visits. The next biggest challenge that sales teams need to address is how well they track their budgets. Is it in the hands of one individual or a collection of people exchanging spreadsheets back and forth between them? Or is there a central budget tracking system with the access controls to the right people? So you know how much of your cost budget has been consumed. Can you run a promotion in the next quarter? Can you buy a new sales enabling tool for the next quarter? Can you attend a conference to win some new potential clients? All of this is a function of budgeting, and transparent budgeting is a huge enabler to better sales. And the fifth and very important one, nevertheless, is the ability to convince your customers with a good track record. For example, if you were in the insurance space, and if you try explaining the insurance terms, and the clients would find it a huge struggle to absorb all of that. But if you go back and tell them that for professionals like them, we have sold insurance and our clients are happy. If you're able to pull out a video of a client interview, speaking the language of your new prospect, and show it to the prospect, there's a high chance that they will recognize that you have the capability to serve them and therefore hand you the business. So do you equip your sales teams with easy access to case studies? So these are the top 5 problems that we have pulled out. We have solved several of these over the last 2-3 quarters, but now we would like to run a poll. Scott, could you please bring up the second poll, and then Chirag can take over from here on.
Okay, so the second poll is on the screen. So pick the most important problem you wish to solve for your sales organization. Is it sales proposal turnaround time? Is it sales team incentive administration? Is it tracking field visits and responding to pre-sales queries? Is it tracking sales and marketing budgets? Or is it presenting customer success stories? So which one is the most important one for you at this time? So we got about 40% of us voting. Everyone's thinking about this because this is a kind of a tough question. But I'm seeing the results here. I think we're going to be a little bit surprised on this one. Over 60% of us have voted. Let's give us about 4 more seconds here. Go with your gut feeling and put a vote in. All right. We're going to share the results. About 80% of us voted. And the results are 58% said sales proposal turnaround time is the most important, and 42% said presenting customer success stories is most important. All the other answers were 0%. So I was a little bit surprised about this. Okay.
Excellent. With very interesting. We'll hand over to Chirag and.
Okay, Chirag, the screen's coming to you.
Thank you, Scott.
I'll let you know as soon as we see your screen.
Yeah.
Okay, I see your screen.
Thanks. So yes, Scott, I think the results are surprising, but not too surprising, because the sales team really understand what are the key things that move the needle for them, and if you do those things right, is what matters to them in terms of the revenue and numbers. So Nattu talked about what are the key concerns or key problems for a sales team and what they seek to address. The question is there an effective solution? There is always a solution, but is it an effective solution? Is it a doable solution? And obviously there is. That's why we are here talking. But what I want to highlight is that there is not one solution. There are multiple ways of addressing the sales process or automating the sales process to get a better turnaround time or to get better responses from the rest of the organization. And from a technology standpoint, this can be built on various platforms. To name a few, there is SharePoint, which is one of the industry-leading enterprise platforms. There are standard BPM tools which allow you to automate your business processes. You also have standalone applications being built in .NET, Java, and main stack, which allow you to have a customized experience. And then the trend of the day today is to go for off-the-shelf SaaS offerings, which basically cater to your needs. So you just pick up, you buy them and provision the licenses for your sales team. So that's also one of the common ways that customers address this problem. So, but with that, I also wanted to highlight that why we are talking about SharePoint today for bulk of the webinar is there are specific reasons where it stands out better than the other options that I talked about, and I've listed a few on the screen here. SharePoint, as we understand, as we are talking about large enterprises, is already a platform of choice for a bulk of large enterprises today in the world, of Fortune 500s as well as the rest. Either they are already onto Office 365 and SharePoint as a platform, or are planning to move in the near future. So it is a platform where your organization has already invested, and it has a focus to maintain and improve this platform in the future. So it makes sense for you to make best use of it. The second thing is, while the requirements of sales team are very specific, sometimes they are not big enough or complicated enough to warrant an entire product to be procured, and you provision for budgeting to be done for that product and buy the entire solution and deploy it for the team. But still, there is a need for a lot of process or a lot of business process internally, and we end up doing that in Excel sheets, spreadsheets, and over the email. So we fall back onto those quick access mechanisms that we have and go from there. So that is what happens today. Another thing is SharePoint is not a standalone platform. It allows you to integrate with a lot of standard backend systems like SAP and Salesforce, which then allows for seamless integration and seamless access of data. So your dashboards can be prepared by getting data from different systems that are really relevant to you. Then the customized business process can be built within weeks and not months. Now, traditionally, when you talk of customer application, we think of a vast development process. But SharePoint is a ready-to-build platform. It is already a platform with capabilities, and it allows you to fast forward and get your application done in a very short time. And not just in desktop application, but also something that is mobile ready. So every application that we build on SharePoint today is, by the nature of it, always mobile, iPad, and iPhone ready, where your sales force or field force can use it on the ground, on the field, without having to fall back onto their desktops for every update. So these are inherent features why we think that SharePoint makes a strong case for being a platform of choice, even when you're automating your sales processes. And we have had experience with two case studies that we are talking today in depth, and both of them reflect the idea of a pain that a customer had, and how SharePoint was able to fit in a solution that was reasonable, and how we were able to get outcomes for the customer. So Ananta, who has been leading our automation project, has been closely involved in both of these engagements. So he would walk us through what was the customer pain point, and then we will also quickly cover what were the technical aspects that were used to deliver a solution.
So the first case study we're going to be seeing today is about a worldwide manufacturer of domestic fittings, specifically their Indian sales organization that has a pan-India presence. They had a proposal approval system in place that was Excel based, an email centric quotation process, and the quotations approvals were based on a discount and value matrix, and each proposal had to go through all the levels of stakeholders. And because it was Excel and email centric, they did not have a central repository of historical quotation data, and they had to rely upon a manual methods to get a report together. And so as I said, they were lacking analytics and tracking capabilities. Now, what we did is we moved away from this Excel-centric process and created a web-based solution that helped us turn around quotations significantly faster, specifically because we have integrated SLA breached warnings, alerts, and some smart approval functionality straight from email. This actually improved the real-time analytics that were available, and this is what success looks like, or success looked like. We saw a 60% increase in quotation approvals happening within 2 days, and a 30% increase in the proposal wins.
Great. And since a lot of our audience today pointed out that this turnaround of proposals is one of the important measures. So what we did to achieve this, what just Ananta just explained about the outcomes of the application. In the background, it was a simple SharePoint-based application which used some of the inbuilt components, which is custom lists for storage and retrieval of data, document libraries where bulk of the collaboration on the document happens, either data coming from internal stakeholders and inputs coming from your technology team, but then being flown into the proposal process. Workflows where bulk of the approvals, since we said that there are multiple levels of approvals and multiple stakeholders who need to contribute, SharePoint's inbuilt workflows were able to handle that in the backend. And we integrated with a third-party application from Adobe, which allows us to do digital signature, which is not part of the core SharePoint platform, but it is an add-on available on SharePoint. So by combination of existing features as well as certain add-ons, you are able to deliver a system which is able to convert the traditional process of Excel-based approach to something that is that you see on your screen. This is a simple dashboard which was part of the application, which gave you a quick overview of where your proposals stand, which are the priority proposals and high-risk proposals that you need to address today, and which are the proposals that are expiring soon. So there are various views which we created based on the customer's requirement and what the business case was. But the important thing to understand is that this reflects a lot of their existing processes being brought onto the platform, and also adding more intelligence to it and more capability to it. So what you see on the screen is if you are the numbers-driven salesperson, this is your bread and butter. You need to see a view of where you are, what are your margins, where is the revenue, and where is the lead conversion happening. So all the metrics that are important to you being available to you at a click of a button. I'm sure that keeping this available and refresh all the time would be a nightmare if you had to work with 10 different Excels landing in the inbox of 10 different salespeople who are working together on a large account. So what this helps is to bring out that view in real time and always keep it updated without the sales team having to do anything to keep it updated. So it helps in getting the data, but also in reducing the effort to have that intelligence driven from the data. This is just a sample screen which shows some of the fields that are coming from the traditional Excel-based system, the code date and things like that. And at the bottom, you can see we added some extra functionality. So when you're moving from a traditional system to a modern digital automated application, you have the opportunity to also do value adds to your existing process. And that's what we did by automatically looking up some of the product details and some of the features which can be mapped on into the system itself. So that previously this was not such an easy task for the sales force to find the product categories and align all of that data for each proposal. So we covered the proposal system, and now we will talk about second important criteria, which was field visits for sales team. So Ananta, if you can just walk us through what was the specific case that we dealt with at this customer.
Okay, so this was a leading chemical manufacturer based in India. Again, they have field sales engineers spread out all over India and all the 30 Indian states. They were tracking again their field visits over email and with an Excel-based report template. Again, as with most Excel-based systems, there's no central database for the data, and the complaints, discussion points, and action items were all being tracked to closure via emails. So that was a problem as well. So the customer essentially wanted us to provide an increased visibility on all the customer-related data to the sales engineer on demand, which was the pending quotes, orders, invoices, things like that, and give him or her a way to capture the complaints, the various discussion points, and the action items that come up during the particular visit, and so that they could track all this to closure. And they also wanted a tool that could be integrated with their business intelligence tools, so that they can perform analytics on it. Now again, we went into a system from Excel onward to a web-based system that allowed us to So this allowed us to give them very tangible results, and enabled us to increase the service turnaround time by almost 30%, and increase their customer satisfaction by 50%.
Thanks, Ananta. So as we see that there was a real tangible improvement in not just the turnaround time, but also the customer satisfaction, which was a direct result of we being able to track the data on the fly and being able to push it back into a central system where everyone has always up-to-date view. Not just that, this whole thing being mobile accessible and available to both the sales managers, as well as the sales executives on the field. And again, at the back end, SharePoint was the primary platform which was driving this whole interaction, and lists and document libraries were the components that were used mainly to drive the data that was going to and fro. Also workflows to handle the business approvals and any process that is involved. So if you have to get your manager's approval after you have made a certain number of visits to a customer, then all of those flow were managed using workflows in SharePoint. The responsive UI was one of the requirement for this case, because it was mobile accessible and we needed rapid, quick, good looking responsive UI, and Bootstrap was used for that part of the functionality. And we again used one of the add-ons on SharePoint, which allows us to convert all of this data into PDFs for easy sharing across, and also for archiving that information for auditing and other things. So it's again a combination of internal features as well as add-ons, which works very well for SharePoint-based applications. And what you see on the next screen is a view of how the applications looked on a mobile device as well as on the iPad. We also had an extra version which was similar to the previous example that I showed. And again, a lot of this is derived from what were the need of the customer, but also wherever we can add value add, because now we are talking about a platform which has all your information, which has all your employee records, and which is connected to a few other platforms like Salesforce or SAP in the backend. we are able to derive that information and populate it in the application, and not just rely on what is the business process that we are automating as a one-on-one mapping. So we talked about how we pick up a business or what happens when we take a business process related to a sales function and automate it using SharePoint or any other platform, and what benefits we derive from it. I also wanted to quickly cover how this road to automation works, as to how we pick up the process and what is the process for going from identifying a process to releasing an automated business process which is digital and mobile enabled for your sales team. So the three parameters that we look at when we look at complexity of a flow is who approves and when, which is the number of rules involved in the whole process, and the number of levels involved, which is how many levels of iteration that that either a form or a document or a proposal has to go through before it gets finally drafted, and the number of interfaces or data interactions that need to happen with existing systems and external systems. So this again decide what is the complexity of the business process that you're trying to build. Based on the combination of these three factors, we classify applications into low, medium, and high complexity. And what you see on the right hand side of the screen are some indicative numbers in terms of weeks, where we go from all the way from discovery to a live version of the application or production ready application per se, in 4 to 6 weeks for slow, 6 to 8 weeks for medium, and so on. And if I have to also explain drill down into what those 4 weeks look like, we do the design and discovery phase to start with, where we understand, do a workshop with the business stakeholders to understand what is the process that they are trying to automate and what are the elements that we can bring onto a platform, map it onto SharePoint or any other business platform that we intend to build it on, and then the implementation and the pilot rollout feedback, and again going through the cycles. What it leads to is a 4-week cycle where you go from discovery to a production ready business process being rolled out into the organization. And then for complex applications or complex business processes, some of the smaller ones can be done in 4 weeks. For the complex ones, you can still do a first iteration and a minimum viable product released in 4 weeks. And then in the agile model, you can keep on repeating the iterations to add more functionality and to tune it better for your team's utilization. So all of those are included in the approach to automating a business process. So with that, I think we have talked a lot today about automation, SharePoint, and what are the needs of the sales team and how we address them. I think there is time for some feedback, where we really wanted to solicit frank feedback from our audience today to understand how we are doing, what they want to hear from us in the future, and what they liked or did not like about the session, so that we try to keep this session relevant for our audience, and your feedback would help us to continue to be on that course in the future. So the link to that is in the chat section in your GoToWebinar panel. We would be very happy if you can spare a minute of your time to get us that feedback. And while we request you to go to the screen and give feedback, I think we have covered most of the discussion that we had to put forth today, but we are open for any questions and answers that you may have, and we can continue this session forward.
Okay, brilliant. So just a reminder that if you just expand your GoToWebinar control panel, go to the chat section, there'll be the link. It'll be a short link to the feedback form. And then if you have questions, we already have a few questions already queued up, but just a reminder, there's also a section for questions, and you can put the question in there and they'll be queued up. So we have just about maybe 20 more seconds here for the feedback form, and then we'll start with the questions. Okay, let's move over to the questions question and answer section of our webinar today. So the first question is, the analytics dashboard that you showed, is that an out-of-the-box SharePoint application, or do we need to build it?
A large portion of that is available out of the box. However, if there are certain complicated dashboards that need to be built, it can always be built using tools like Power BI available from Microsoft, which allows you to quickly build dashboards onto SharePoint. So bulk of it is available on the platform.
Okay. Next question. Are there any other tools recommended aside from SharePoint for sales automation?
Well, like I said, there are multiple options. I shared the reasons for why we recommend SharePoint, because if it is already in your organization, it makes a lot of sense for you to use it. In cases where you are not on the Microsoft track and you're not on SharePoint, there are other platforms, but a bulk of them actually go into a mean stack application development, because either you get a pre-built custom SaaS product, which you cannot customize too much for your individual business process needs. So the options that you have is go for one of those off-the-shelf applications, but they cannot be customized, or certain BPM platforms that are available in the market. But then a lot of it gets done on plain .NET and mean stack to implement these simple business processes.
Okay, perfect. To automate our business process, what level of detail? Hold on 1 second. Let me start over on that one. To automate our business processes, what level of detailed requirements would you need from us?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because we have seen this. These business processes that we are trying to automate have evolved over a period of time, and they have been more in the end user space. So it doesn't start with someone sitting and documenting it. So it's very difficult to find a clear-cut documentation of what you want to automate. And if we start asking for that, we lose a lot of time in going to and fro. What we do instead is we run a workshop where we ask some specific parameters from the business stakeholders who own this application, who want to use this application. And from that, we derive almost 80 to 85% of the core functionality that we have to build. And then specific cases where you need to choose between option A and option B, that's basically the areas where we have to go with a more formal process of presenting the options, documenting the pros and cons, and then choosing one over the other.
Okay. Next question. Elena would like to know, what tools do you use to map out the business process?
Can you repeat that again?
What tools do you use to map out the business process?
Well, we have our own in-house templates that we use to first start discovering what your process is. In certain cases, we have, so we come from a long history of Lotus applications where a lot of large enterprises have thousands of applications. For those situations, we also have a customized solution which runs through your server and allows us to analyze all of your applications programmatically, and it generates a simple report which then allows us to understand what the business process is, how many levels of approval are there, how many complex views are to be created, and things like that. So in certain cases, it's an automated system where we have tools, in-house tools, which run and capture all that information. In certain other cases, we have to go the traditional way of flowcharts, swim lane diagrams, and also customer journey mapping to understand what is the journey of an end user on this particular business process. We create a journey map of the customer, which is current as well as what is the future, and then we define the entire flow based on that journey of the customer.
Okay. Perfect. And again, if you have some additional specific follow-up questions, you can. I would highly recommend that you reach out to Maarga Systems directly, for maybe a one-on-one conversation. These are great questions. We have 2 more in the queue at the moment. So the next question is, how do we ensure people use the automation and not remain in Excel spreadsheets?
Yes, that's another really valid scenario where you do everything in your capacity to provide a system, but you cannot make users use it if they're comfortable with the existing ways of working. So a lot of that goes into change management and adoption for us, and we do a lot of work on training, hand holding, and mentoring users on moving on to this platform, because there are certainly benefits that they derive from coming onto the platform and leaving the old ways. But unless you show them and unless you walk them through that path, they don't come and try things out and stick onto the platform. So it's a long tail in terms of changing the behavior of a user. But once you do that, you would see that the adoption is sticky, and those users don't go and fall back onto their Excel sheets once they have started using it in an effective manner.
Okay. Perfect. Next question is, what tools do you use to maintain each business process?
Yeah, I think Ananta would be a right person to answer that. Ananta, do you have some ideas to share?
So we have used tools like we've mapped business processes using tools like Lucid Chart. That's one tool that we have used.
And like I said, we do a customer journey mapping for each and every business process, and then we manage and maintain that onto our Office 365 SharePoint platform, and then from there we collaborate over the entire business process being defined and then refined as we go forward.
Okay, that answer was just a little bit soft on the mic, but so we'll have to maybe get that one answered just a little bit more detailed, maybe in a follow-up email. But I believe with the processes, there was a couple of tools that you mentioned, and again, just keeping the journey maps and everything updated, I think certainly would help maintain those processes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We don't have any additional questions queued up, so if someone's being a little bit shy but they have a question, now is the time to put it in while we're still online. If not, and you want to share your question or ask your question directly to Maarga Systems, there's an email here on the slide, or you can also respond to a follow-up email that'll come out with the link to the recording of the webinar. So we did record this so that you can share it with colleagues, and also go back and review the items that were presented today. Okay, so looks like we do have one last question coming in. Thank you very much. What was the most challenging part regarding the case studies you presented?
I think I can take that question. So the most challenging part essentially is, I would think, getting people to start using once the tool has been automated, because people are stuck to their old habits, and unless otherwise you give them a significant improvement in their user experience, and by user experience I don't mean the user interface itself, but in general how they interact with the system, it's going to be difficult for them to get used to it, and that's pretty much a challenge in every single use case, every single case that we have seen so far. In the proposal approval process that we automated, these are sales engineers that have been used to an Excel-based tool for a long time, and getting them to use an online system was kind of difficult, but we got over it by kind of mimicking a lot of the things that they could do with Excel with the web-based interface itself. For example, they could just tab on from one field to another and have the entire stuff get calculated just like Excel would do it automatically. So that's getting people to get used to the new system in place. That's the most challenging part.
Yeah, and I think I can add one more experience that we have prominently had with these kind of business processes, that depends on whom you are talking to. In our case, we were talking to someone who was supposed to be the business owner of this process. And he had very strong ideas about how it has to be implemented when it gets implemented, because it was being driven by him through Excels and other offline methods. So that doesn't fit in with how the rest of the team is comfortable using it. Now,
Yeah.
this leads to that other challenge that Ananda talked about. It who is defining the process and who is using the process. If they have a conflict, it's not going to be easy to bring them onto the platform and make them use it. So we had this experience in some of our initial journeys when we started doing automation of business processes for sales teams, and then we eventually realized that we need to do at least a couple of iterations with not just the business owner, but also the users who are going to use it, so that we can align their viewpoints.
Okay, great. Looks like we have one final question. So what are your actions or recommended actions if there's no single process in place? For example, each sales representative works in their own way. So what would your recommended actions be in a scenario where everybody's just doing whatever they want?
Yes, I think that is the real situation, and the two-word answer is automated. But just to elaborate on that, I think the thing that you need to do is, although each of them are following their own process, it's not that they are doing different work. So end of the day, the team has an objective, the organization has an objective, and what they're trying to do is basically track their activities. Just to give an example, while every large organization has Salesforce or any other standard CRM product, you would find that the CRM, it is a struggle to maintain rich data in the CRM, up-to-date data, because guys keep information to themselves till the time that they are confident enough to put it into a system. So that is a classic case where all salespeople would have their own processes because they are not comfortable putting it into a formal system. What we are talking here is not a full-fledged CRM. It is a system that makes your team comfortable to work with each other and always lets you track where you are and things like that. So when you put something in a business process for your team, it is still equivalent to you maintaining your own process. You still have that level of control on what you are inputting, and it doesn't directly get reflected into a CRM unless you want it to. So I think the idea would be to understand a common method of working for the team and implement a system. People will and then drive people to drop their individual ways and start using some of the functionality that we provide in this in a standard business process.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance today and your questions. Very, very good questions. And again, just if you have any follow-up questions or want to engage with Maarga Systems, this is how you'd reach out and contact them. Please watch for an email with the recording. And with that, so Natu, Chirag, and Ananta, I'll give you the last word before we end the webinar.
Hey, yeah, thanks everyone. Truly interactive, and this is what we value. When we take the effort to conduct the webinar, and great interacting with all of you. Thank you so much on behalf of the entire Maarga team, and you have a rest of your day, a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.